I'm Mark Stone.
And I'm James Matthews. You're listening to episode 50 of Trump 100.
That's right, 50 days into Donald Trump's second term. So how are Americans feeling about this roller coaster they've put us all on? I've been to Pennsylvania to find out.
This presidency has had global ramifications. Dominic Waghorn, our international affairs editor, has been to Kenya, Finland and Greenland to find out what Trump 2.0 has meant for the rest of the world.
Now, across our 50 days, we've had a mixed response, I'd say, to the length, the duration, 15 minutes. Some of you love that. You love the concise nature of it. Some of you want more. And so today, for one day only, to mark day 50, we're going to give you that. So strap in. But before we dive into it, James, should we try and name a few things that have happened over the past 50 days in 1 minute?
Yeah, there have been a few of them. I'll do one, you do one, yeah?
Okay.
All right, here we go. The inauguration.
President-elect of the United States, the Honorable Donald John Trump.
And remember how cold that was, minus 20.
Oh, it was cold. Trump and the bishop, remember that?
Trump buying Gaza.
Trump at the Super Bowl.
The Washington plane crash, a dark night.
Yeah, blaming it all on DEI.
I signed something last week that was an executive order, very powerful, on restoring the highest standards of air traffic controllers. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent, the word talent.
And at the same time, deporting migrants.
Reopening Guantanamo.
Trans rights, or not.
Raising tariffs.
Reversing tariffs.
Musk, Doge, that chainsaw.
Trump calling Putin.
Elon Musk attending the Oval Office.
With his son and his bogey on the Resolute desk.
Or booger, as they say here. Job cuts at national parks.
The Gulf of America.
And a White House ban for the Associated Press.
Zelensky, the dictator.
The Ukrainian minerals deal of the century, or brutal blackmail.
Macron and the bromance. Remember that?
Who can forget? Thigh-slappingly bromantic. The letter from the king.
Starmer in a suit.
Zelensky, not so much.
At the Oval Office in meltdown.
You don't have the cards.
Make a deal or we're out.
You're gambling with World War III. That was the day that was, and the fallout falls into the next 50 days.
Yeah, this White House really has been a White House like no other.
America is back.
It's true, James. We really are living through and reporting on such a truly extraordinary time. At times, I think, because we're in the middle of the vortex, we don't have a chance to step back and just absorb the enormity of the changes, the profound changes that are happening domestically, but globally as well. I mean, we're living through a moment, aren't we?
And we're lucky enough to have a front seat watching history as it unfolds. And he's only been in power for 6 weeks. And the political ecosystem has turned 180 degrees.
The geopolitical ecosystem as well. It's been so busy and so frenetic in this vortex that it's hard to get out sometimes, beyond the bubble, beyond the beltway, as they say here. The question I've been wanting to get to over the past 50 days, and we've touched on it throughout, but not really got properly under the skin of it, is what do Americans make of all this? How happy are they with it all? Do they like what they see? Is it what those who ticked Donald Trump's name in the ballot box, is it what they really wanted?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? As you say, reporting this Trump presidency, it is unique. So much comes out of the White House, and that chains us much of the time to Washington, D.C. as journalists. This is a unique situation. There is, of course, the small matter of the people who voted for Trump and the people who didn't. And you've been chasing them in Pennsylvania, yeah?
Yeah, I've been to Pennsylvania, the Keystone State. It's a place I crisscrossed in the last election, in fact, the last 3 elections, and it's crucial in every one of them. It's kind of a microcosm of the country as well, because you've got these 2 urban centers, Pittsburgh in the west, Philadelphia in the east, democratic strongholds, and then the rural parts of the state, a huge state, are all very, very Republican, Trump Republican now. And then you got the hinterlands in between. Places like Gettysburg and Waynesboro, two towns that we went to, both back in November, broadly voted 2/3 Trump, 1/3 Harris. So we kind of knew what we were going to get.
Yeah.
I think what interested us was whether anyone had any buyer's remorse, whether people were thinking, oh my God, I didn't expect it to be like this. Gettysburg, of course, it's a place steeped in American history. It's the site of the battle which changed the course of the nation. And the rocky outcrop where that battle was fought, perfect place for a battle because there's rocks everywhere. You can actually feel the history. You can imagine the Civil War soldiers hiding behind these rocks. And when we were there, it was frigid. I mean, so cold. And only the battle-hardy, the foolhardy were doing the battlefield tour. A few of them. We thought they were American, actually, so we ran up to them to try and talk to them. And the guy was British.
Yeah, I did that in Philadelphia at the Rocky Steps.
Yeah.
Went up to the three guys who, for all the world, were dressed in quite gaudy gear, and I thought definitely locals. Asked them about politics, and they said, "Sorry, mate, we're from Halifax."
Very good, very good. Anyway, of course, this place is also the location for Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. That was the moment, 1863, where he reminded the nation, a nation so divided by a civil war, that it was founded on the principles of liberty and of equality. He was, most would agree, I think, America's most consequential president. I say was because there's a new man in town.
Yeah, Donald Trump may beg to differ.
Yeah. Anyway, in the square, the town square, Lincoln's statue stands tall, and it was there, James, that I chased down the voters and their views.
Oh, he's doing great.
Yeah, you're happy with him?
Yeah, he's doing real great. Yeah.
What are the best things that he's done, you think, over
The
the
money he's making me.
So remember, this is a place that voted 2/3 Trump, 1/3 Harris. And in the corner of the square, I spotted three young folk and ran over to them. No idea quite what they would say. But the conversation, I think, kind of got to the heart of, it was an abrupt turn from what we'd just heard, and it kind of got to the heart of the angst that's bubbling under the surface.
I've been pretty depressed surrounding a lot of the news that I've heard.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a trans person, so a lot of his policies have been impacting transgender people, and that is just, I feel like it's a scary time to live in. That's
interesting, Mark. I've just been looking at the polls, Trump's approval rating, which is not everything he would want. That showed 47.6% approval. That puts him back in the same territory as he was actually in his first term, when he never achieved more than 50% job approval. So not great.
Yeah, but the polls they're kind of confusing sometimes. I was looking at the polling for after his State of the Union speech, or the speech on Congress, the joint address. Of those that watched it in a CBS poll, 76% approved of it, 23% disapproved of it. I mean, I guess maybe there'll be people who just like, I loathe Trump, I'm not even going to tune into that.
Yeah.
So that may well be skewed. But then, the time Trump spent on issues you care about, 63% said a lot of time, 28% a little time. So the polling is mixed, but I think the polling he's reading, he's liking the look of. He feels emboldened by what he's doing, and that's certainly what we found in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, there are people who tune in and who tune out of Trump, aren't there?
Which makes it hard to poll accurately. Anyway, our very unscientific polling took us to Chubby's Pizza.
Where else?
Highly recommend. It didn't look the greatest place. It
doesn't sound the greatest place.
It was a bit run down and a bit empty, but we were drawn there by, do you know what?
Go on.
A red Trump hat bobbing up and down in the window. I couldn't quite work out what's going on. I could just see something outside.
Cliche.
Yeah, well, I couldn't. We were driving past, and I could see this hat moving up and down. I was like, "What's this guy doing?" Turns out he was a handyman, and his name was Tom. And in we went, and over a very, very good veggie pizza, Tom and I talked Trump.
I think he's doing great. He's doing everything he said he's going to do. You know, what can you say? He campaigned on all his policies, what he's going to do, and he's fulfilling them.
So Tom is Trump to his core, in his 60s probably, a face that to me reflected a hard-working life, a beard, very welcoming, really keen to talk to us.
Donald Trump is all about life, keeping people from dying, helping people out. You know, he's pulling these tariffs to get what he wants.
And so from Chubby's Pizza, we went, obviously, to the local pet parlour.
For dessert.
where we met a couple of little poodles having their bath, and Tina and her apprentice, Molly. I kind of wanted to talk about issues that maybe very, very wrongly I assumed wouldn't be on their radar, like Ukraine. But not only was Ukraine on Tina's radar, but she had a very strong view about it.
It's not our war. We have enough people in this country suffering. That's how I feel about it. I don't think that they deserve our money.
And I think that's, that is a view replicated. And throughout our trip, we heard these sort of Trump talking points repeated, like word for word, stuff he's saying, which in many cases we know not to be true, about how much America has spent in Ukraine, about Zelensky being a dictator, being some sort of a corrupt leader. All of these things are being repeated. And that kind of led me on to the next part of our conversation, because it was so clear to me that Tina and Molly are kind of, that they're living in their own echo chamber, only hearing a certain side of the story.
We don't really go to the mainstream media. We don't do that.
Yeah.
Because they've been proven to, it isn't true.
So I guess my takeaway there, and I've got a few, but I don't know what you think, but for me, like, if the whole world is kind of bewildered and buffeted by Trump, when you go to these kind of Trump heartlands, the question there is why? Why are you bewildered? He's doing exactly what he promised he would do. And I guess that this idea that we thought maybe that people might think he's gone too far on certain areas. No, the people who we spoke to, who voted for him, they seem, for now at least, to be entirely comfortable with what he is doing. And those who loathe him on the other side, well, guess what? They still do.
Yeah, on the election campaign trail, I was struck by speaking to similar people, similar demographic. They were all about what they were after. And really, that was about the money in their pocket. It was kind of single issue stuff. So I suppose, and we are only 6 weeks in, I suppose these people still have faith that will come good for them, because that's the message they're still getting from their messenger in chief. I suppose their focus isn't necessarily on the extent of change and the breadth of it. I mean, we're talking about a president here, who's taking care of the economy, arguably making a mess of it, tariffs and stock markets crashing.
People haven't felt that yet, though. That's
indeed, but listen, stick around in time. Target, department stores, they're already warning about prices going up. But it's a president who is changing the world order, who is making deals with Vladimir Putin, bringing the old adversary back in to the fray, just upending geopolitics as we know it. I wonder if that actually hits home, resonates in places like, Pennsylvania, where people have, feel disconnected from the political process at large, I think, a lot of the time. And for them, they're quite content getting along with their lives, just trusting in what Donald Trump continues to tell them, that America's stronger, your life is going to get better. The rest of the world is a faraway place whose problems don't impact on us.
I also feel that they feel they have been disconnected by the political establishment, and they feel kind of screwed by politics. And, Donald Trump is, as the guy in the bar just now said, is offering something different. And for now, they don't feel any of the negatives. They're not concerned about what we in Europe might be concerned about. It feels way too far away.
Well, in time, they'll find out just how much they've got to lose. Maybe it'll all be fine and life will be good and Donald Trump will be a successful president.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Yeah, I think to assume that those who chose Donald Trump would have any regrets would be, at the moment at least, to fundamentally misunderstand America today.
Trump's USA is an insular one, America first always. But the truth is, what he's done in 50 days and whatever he does for the next 50 and beyond has global implications. Every corner of the world has felt the actions of this new president. So to illuminate those corners of the world, who are you going to call, Mark?
Dominic Waghorn.
Dominic
Who
Waghorn.
else? Who else?
Come in, Waggers.
Hello. Hello from Greenland.
Tell us, you've been on your travels.
Yeah, so we've gone. We were sort of briefed to go and get away from the headlines, get away from the summits and the politicians, get away from what you're doing, and looking at what Trump has meant for the lives of real people, real people's lives around the world. We chose 3 places. We chose Kenya because of to look at the impact of the aid cuts, drastic cuts that Trump has imposed, what that's meant in human lives. Then Finland, what's it mean for people right up against the border with Russia, the whole issue of NATO and European security. And then here in Greenland, what's been described as a kind of imperialist presidency, someone, from a president who wants to seize other people's countries potentially. What does that mean for real people here? And we found lots of different sort of views and reactions around the world, but one common thread, which is people are really bewildered and shocked by what has happened to an old friend that they feel now effectively deserted by.
Dom, let's start it in Kenya then, because I think that's where you started. I mean, we've reported a lot on the cuts that Donald Trump and his administration have been making to the federal government. USAID has been clearly a big part of that, a huge part of that. But it's been hard sometimes to really visualize what that means. And I guess in Kenya, you got a clear sense.
Yeah, and I think the way it's been seen in Washington is obviously it's people at USAID's headquarters coming out with cardboard boxes, but where we went to, which was the sort of the poorest parts of Nairobi and Kisumu to the west of that, you can see the real human impact. And what it means in Kenya is an absolute potential human health disaster, because American aid is 40% of developmental aid across the world. And in Kenya, it's $850 million a year. And that effectively has been cut off almost completely overnight. So we went through the back alleys, the sort of sewage-ridden, narrow back alleys of Nairobi, into these buildings where people are living in, with several children in just one-bedroom homes. We went to visit Anne, who's a very young mother, single mother with HIV, with a small baby, a 1-year-old baby. And she was typical of the mothers we met. She is terrified for the future because she knows the aid's been cut. The medication and the nutritional help she was getting over a few months she's down to 1 month's supply. And she's really fearful for the future. And the health manager we spoke to afterwards said, just to give you an idea, for the area that her church charity is responsible for, she thinks 20,000 children could be at risk. These are children who are under the age of 5. Their mothers have HIV. If they don't get the right drugs, then there's a real risk the virus will be passed on to them. If they don't get the nutritional support they're relying on, they could die of starvation. So that one charity, that one area alone, 20,000 kids, and that was replicated across the country wherever we went. I mean, there's a big debate in Kenya about aid, about America making countries like Kenya too dependent on aid, and we spoke to people who actually quite like Donald Trump. He appeals to evangelical Christians in particular there because of his socially conservative points of view on issues like gender and sexuality. But even amongst those, there's a real sense of worry and bafflement, I think, that this happened overnight. And that's just in Kenya, but it's this is a concern being felt across the developing world, and it is doing enormous harm potentially to the health of millions of people.
That's shocking, Dom, the scale and the sudden nature of it all. But there also is this business of soft power that comes with American aid overseas. Soft power no more, and opportunity for Russia China adversaries.
If that money goes, I mean, I've seen it across Africa, China's footprint in terms of infrastructure. Do you expect that China could fill that gap in terms of healthcare?
I don't think it's China's style. It's not what they've done in the past. I mean, they have to some extent, but they're more into building big infrastructure projects and then expecting things in return, and often lending money at pretty exorbitant rates to build them. I think we'll certainly see more private benefactors. We'll see Europeans potentially trying to fill that vacuum. But if you're talking about American aid being 40% effectively of aid around the world, that's very hard to fill. I think Kenya's government's got to do a lot more. It's got to spend more money, and a lot of that money is going in corruption. So it's highlighting that. And there is certainly a debate going on, an argument to be made that Donald Trump is highlighting the fact that these countries are too dependent on aid. But it's the sudden nature. It's the fact that he's done it immediately and overnight that is causing absolute chaos and panic and massive fear, and also leading to patient stockpiling. Big concern is that they're going to return to the dark ages, pandemics, epidemics. You're going to see stigma coming back over HIV and other diseases. And all that work that's been done over decades and the billions of dollars spent on controlling these diseases is now very much at risk.
And from Africa, you went to Finland, of course, the European country with the longest border with Russia. What did you find?
Yeah, so in Finland, we saw a country that is acutely aware of its bigger, potentially more aggressive neighbour, and they have good historic reasons, the Finns, to be very wary of the Russians. And I think there's a sense there that they are again baffled by the fact that under Donald Trump, the Americans are retreating from providing security for Europeans. And so what you're seeing in Finland is kind of a nation that's sort of known for being peace-loving and neutral. Obviously, it's joined NATO. But also they are arming up. They are preparing there. So we went to a shooting range. And one of the outcomes of the Ukraine conflict there's been a sort of boom in Finns learning and trying to fire guns. So a boom in hundreds of new shooting ranges. So we went to a shooting range. We spoke to people there, and what they were saying to us was they have to be prepared for the worst. They've got to learn how to handle guns, and they want to be ready if things are going in a dangerous direction. And they don't feel America's obviously got their backs anymore.
So I guess, Dom, in a very different way, it's the same principle of America pulling the rug out overnight that has just genuinely freaked people out.
Dom, you're in Greenland now. Now, Donald Trump at the joint address to Congress, he said, "We will take control of Greenland one way or the other." I wonder how that's gone down where you are. Enthusiastic or like a bag of cement?
It's gone down pretty badly, and I think there are two things that strike you when you come to Greenland. It is, first of all, it is absolutely spectacularly beautiful. It's the potential of the country that really strikes you when you come here. The amazing natural beauty, the light, the human potential, and obviously the mineral wealth, and the fact that the ice is regrettably melting, and therefore there's a greater chance of access to the Arctic. For all those reasons, Donald Trump has got his eyes on this place. And I think, what strikes you apart from all that is that, it is deadly serious for Greenlanders. I think the way we look at it in America in the West and back home is it's a bit of a joke. Donald Trump sort of talked about taking over Greenland. That was regarded as a bit of a joke. Actually, here they take it very seriously. And they're pretty horrified by it. And the bottom line for them is, I think they feel threatened. I don't think they feel that he's about to invade. But what they feel most of all is that the values they felt they shared with the Americans just don't seem to be shared by the Americans anymore. The idea that neighbours look after neighbours, they protect the whole concept of sovereignty. And the Greenlanders feel like Donald Trump has just completely abandoned it entirely. And I think they also fear that it's a predatory approach under this new sort of more imperialistic, expansionist America. And I think what they fear most of all is that the Americans are going to meddle in their politics. I mean, there are people here who would like to see closer ties with America. There are some who feel that Greenland could get richer under America. And I think the fear is that under Donald Trump, there might be an attempt to kind of drive a wedge, which is why the election that's coming up here in the next few days is really crucial. Because is that going to send a message, a response to Donald Trump, what he said in Congress, that he believes that America will have Greenland one way or another? Or will there be an opportunity there for the Americans under Donald Trump to sort of, as I say, stick the wedge into Greenland politics and make life harder here? So they're generally worried about that, and also about what it says about American values in the world.
It's worth saying that over the years, over history, the United States has acquired land through purchase. It's done it a lot over many decades, and so I suppose Donald Trump thinks, "What's the difference? I can do it. I did it then. I can do it now."
Yeah, I suppose the question would be, will he take it by force? So that's a question we've been asked. I just wonder what your observations are on that.
Well, people here just sort of, they find that so far-fetched and outrageous, they're not taking that seriously at the moment.
It is far-fetched, isn't it? I mean, I think actually what Donald Trump means is, I'm going to try and I think he got to this in the State of the Union speech. He basically is saying, I'm going to try and make it worth their while, worth Greenlanders' while to become the 51st or the 52nd state. I guess the question is, do they want to? It sounds to me like they don't particularly have an attachment to Denmark, but don't want to be American either. They want to be themselves.
I think you've got the situation here where Greenlanders feel that they are sort of stuck between Denmark and America, but they don't want to lose things like free healthcare, the kind of security the Danes have given them. And they look at America now as a sort of predatory, aggressive neighbour that wouldn't give them free healthcare if they ever sort of became American. I think in a sense what Trump is doing here is actually alienating them more, making it harder for those in Greenland, the very few of them who would like to see closer association with America.
I was going to ask very briefly what the process is. I mean, if Greenlanders decided that they would rather be American than Danish, how would that happen?
Yeah, well, I think how it could work in a constitutional sense is they're semi-autonomous, so they have a right to have a referendum whenever they want to vote one way or another for Danish independence from Denmark. As I say, there seems to be no appetite for that to happen immediately because I don't think Greenlanders feel they're ready for it yet, but it's a long-term aspiration. And then you could see, obviously, if they became independent, they could then have much closer ties with America under various arrangements. I think what Trump and his MAGA supporters are doing, and they have very close alliances, obviously, with mining groups, is they're trying to increase their access to Greenland's mineral wealth. So Greenland is sitting on a huge amount of rare earth mineral wealth that I think really sort of dwarfs what Ukraine has, which is obviously another country that Trump's talked about rare earth mineral wealth deals with. But it is hugely difficult to access because of the weather, because of the freezing temperatures, also because the population here doesn't like to see its mineral wealth being exploited. So there's an opportunity there for Donald Trump's allies, and I think what they will hope for is that he will make it easier for them in a rather bullying kind of way to gain access. But, you shouldn't underestimate the challenges they'll face if they try and exploit that opportunity.
I wonder, Dom, if there is a scenario where, as Greenlanders have been prompted to think about their future in a more acute way, they are maybe, as you say, they don't feel they're ready for independence yet. But if Donald Trump over the next 1, 2, 3 years was able to offer them genuine incentives.
I think the danger for Greenland is it could, as I say, drive a wedge into Greenland politics, because there are those here who are very poor, who would like to see greater opportunities, greater economic opportunities. They might see Donald Trump's America offering that, but having said that, they're proudly independent. They are defiantly resentful of colonial exploitation, and they would see that from the Americans as well. But it is possible for him to cause mischief here, to meddle here, and to cause trouble. And obviously, the Danes see that as a big threat. I'd ask you, from what you've seen in Pennsylvania, and also James on your travels, is there any sense at all amongst Americans what damage their president is doing to America standing in the world? They see an old friend becoming an enemy, potentially a predatory rogue state, and it is going to strengthen rivals like Russia and China, great powers that Donald Trump seems to want to cozy up to.
But specifically from Pennsylvania, and it is easy to generalize, but from what I found there, the answer is no. They don't have a grasp of those who voted for Trump and have no regrets. And I didn't find any Trump voters who did have regrets or even any concerns. In fact, they were baffled as to why I would even suggest that they might have concerns. They have no inkling of the the buffeting that Trump has caused around the world, either because they're just not tuned in at all, or they're tuned into their own echo chamber where they are just not hearing about, the impact it's having in Nairobi, the fear it's causing in Finland, the unease it's causing in Greenland. They're just not seeing this, or they just don't care because their focus and their president's focus is America first.
Yeah, I think, America is a terrific country. We are privileged to be here, work here amongst Americans, but it's an insular country. And, we speak about the importance of the Ukraine war and the implications of that. That matters to us because it's right next door. America, is distant. But I think also Americans actually are busy dealing with change here in the United States. You have a president who has turned things on its head, the US Constitution. He is threatening that to a large degree, overloading the powers of the presidency and, just changing the way that this country has done its business, the structure of government. It is America reimagined at home and abroad. And yeah, there are huge changes in terms of world order implications for all that. But right here in the United States, this is a new world. It's a Trump world.
Well, I think you're right. I think, as you say, he's kind of interventionist where it suits him, and it does seem to be following a kind of late 19th century model of being quite expansionist, particularly in America's backyard. But I think what you seem to be reporting on and what we've seen is that there's I'm saying amongst the American people, there's certainly an isolationist. There's misadventures in the world, in Iraq and other places have been hugely costly. So they kind of, and you sort of wonder whether there's a tension there between, as you say, an interventionist, expansionist president in some respects, but playing to isolationism amongst the American people, and that isolationism. Is that going to break at some point? Is eventually, are Americans going to sort of look at their president and say, why are you getting involved? You don't want to be involved in wars, but you seem to be talking about invading neighbours. At what point do they hold them to account over that?
Dom, many thanks. Really interesting. Safe journey home. Very interesting to hear your stories.
It'd be great to talk to you guys. Good to be on your podcast. We fly from here to Reykjavik and then home from there. So it's been
not a skidoo.
Quite an odyssey.
How disappointing.
We did it but
Well, before we sign off, 50 days of Donald Trump means 50 days of Trump 100, of this podcast. And we're so grateful, aren't we, James? Martha is too. She's still on holiday, by the way. But we are very grateful to all of you for tuning in every day. We seem to have gathered quite a loyal following, and that's surprised us and delighted us. So thank you very much. It's been great. What on earth have the next 50 days got in store for us?
Who knows indeed. Thank you. We're grateful. Look forward to sharing the next 50 days of Trump 100 with you. For now, we have pulled together a highlight reel, highlights from the first 50 days, which we are going to play you out with. So here goes.
Hold tight.
President-elect of the United States.
We're going to do this 100 times every day for the next 3 months.
Why have we agreed to this? Another what a day.
Welcome to Trump 100, Diana.
Thanks very much.
Sorry, someone's banging next door.
I was wondering if that was someone building a bed for you so you can sleep in the office.
News happens fast around Donald Trump.
Trump's plan to bring back plastic straws is dividing people in the United States.
The bromance that we have become used to. Testosterone that was perhaps fueling the diplomacy.
Did you hear the Beth Rigby use a bad word in the Oval Office today?
What was the word? I've now forgotten. I'm so tired.
Elon Musk and his minions. Those are her words, not mine.
Day 17.
Day 18.
Day 25.
Day 31.
Day 33.
Trump appears to have declared his first actual trade war.
That wasn't a nightmare. That actually happened.
You're gambling with World War III.
The Ukrainians are being entirely left out of a process which impacts them directly.
So that's quite a signature, isn't it? How
It
beautiful.
is a fact that it is now called the Gulf of America. This is stuff that has been debunked, but for Donald Trump, it just doesn't matter.
Donald Trump, remember, is the man who declared himself peacemaker.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip.
The fact that Donald Trump was now effectively asking history to be repeated and saying they should go and live somewhere else, that was remarkable. I've been round the White House, actually.
I would like to see from Melania Trump evidence that she lives there. That's it for today.
Thanks as always for listening.
Cheerio.